Story 1. The Night Stalker at the Supercenter. The fluorescent lights of the Walmart Supercenter buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow across the sprawling aisles that stretched like a labyrinth in the dead of night. It was 10 p.m., and I, a single mother in my late 20s, clocked in for my overnight shift, a grueling 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. slog that I endured to balance my son's school schedule and the relentless demands of rent. The store, one of the few 24-hour behemoths in the area, was a chaotic microcosm of humanity during the day, but at night it transformed into a stage for the bizarre and unsettling. That particular night was colder than usual, the kind of chill that seeped through the sliding glass doors and lingered in the bones. The store was still humming with a scattering of late-night shoppers, insomniacs, shift workers, and the occasional eccentric hoarding snacks for a midnight binge. My job as a stock worker was simple: keep the shelves tidy, replenish the endless rows of cereal boxes, and avoid the chaos of the day shift. But simplicity evaporated when the clock ticked past midnight and the store's atmosphere shifted. I was in the cereal aisle, methodically arranging boxes of Frosted Flakes and Cheerios, when I first noticed him, a man with curly hair and a black backpack so stuffed it looked ready to burst. He shuffled past the aisle, his footsteps deliberate, then doubled back, pausing at the end of the row. His eyes locked onto me, unblinking, and a chill unrelated to the cold ran down my spine. I glanced up and he quickly averted his gaze, pretending to study a box of granola bars. His presence felt like a shadow, heavy and unwelcome. Minutes later he approached, his voice low and hesitant. "Excuse me, where's the bread?" he asked, his breath carrying a faint sourness. I pointed him toward the bakery section, my tone clipped but polite. "Thanks," he muttered, waddling away with an odd swaying gait. I thought that was the end of it, but he kept reappearing, like a ghost haunting the edges of my vision. Every few minutes he'd pass by the cereal aisle, his eyes darting toward me, his hands empty. No bread, no groceries, just that bulging backpack. By 1 a.m., the store had quieted to an eerie hum, save for the lone cashier at the self-checkout and a couple of warehouse workers in the back. I moved to the chips aisle, hoping distance would shake him off, but he found me again. This time, he didn't bother with pretense. "I've been watching you," he said, his voice dripping with a confidence that made my stomach churn. "You're beautiful, you know that?" His words were a violation, each syllable crawling under my skin. I forced a laugh, deflecting with a polite, "Oh, that's sweet, but no thank you." But he pressed closer, his questions growing personal. Where was I from? Was I single? Could he have my number? I fed him lies, my heart pounding as I scanned the aisle for an escape. His breath was rancid, his persistence suffocating. When he asked for my number, I scribbled a fake one on a scrap of receipt paper, hoping it would buy me freedom. "I can't talk while I'm working," I added, my voice firm. He smirked as if he'd won something and sauntered off. Relief was short-lived. Hours later, as I restocked soda cans, my walkie-talkie crackled. "There's a guy asking for you," my coworker whispered, her voice tinged with unease. "He's creepy." My blood ran cold. I told her to say I'd left, then bolted for the employee lounge, my sanctuary of vending machines and worn-out couches. But as I sank into a chair, the double doors swung open, and there he was, his face twisted with anger, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "You gave me a fake number," he bellowed, his voice echoing in the empty room. My heart stopped. I stood, my legs trembling. "You can't be back here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He ignored me, slamming his backpack onto the table and unzipping it with deliberate slowness. My mind raced. Weapon, bomb, something worse? Instinct took over. I sprinted past him, dodging his outstretched hand, and ran through the store, my sneakers pounding against the linoleum. He chased me, his heavy footsteps thudding behind. I burst through the front doors into the frigid night, fumbling for my car keys. As I peeled out of the parking lot, I saw him stumble out of the store, scanning the darkness for me. My hands shook as I dialed the night manager, my voice breaking as I recounted the nightmare. He was unsympathetic, insisting I couldn't leave them short-staffed, but I refused to return that night. The next day he claimed he'd called the police and handed over surveillance footage. But I never heard what became of the man with the backpack. I quit soon after, the memory of his pursuit a scar I'd carry forever. Story 2. The Shadow in the Mall. At 14, the world feels like a playground and a prison all at once, full of possibilities, yet tethered by the rules of youth. The Walmart near my house, a sprawling anchor of the local mall, was my escape, a place where I could stretch my meager allowance on cheap jeans and clearance tops. It was a 15-minute walk from home, a journey I often made alone, my AirPods blasting pop anthems to drown out the world. Headphones were my armor, a signal to strangers that I wasn't interested in small talk. Most people got the hint. He didn't. It was a crisp November evening, the mall already twinkling with early Christmas decorations, when I wandered into Walmart's girls' clothing section. I was rifling through a rack of sweaters when I sensed someone nearby, their presence prickling the back of my neck. I looked up to see a man, short, gray-haired, maybe 50, with wire-rimmed glasses and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was talking, his lips moving silently against the music in my ears. Reluctantly, I pulled out my AirPods. "Are you talking to me?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. "Yes," he said, his tone overly familiar. "I was just saying, my daughter loves those jeans you're wearing." His words were innocent enough, but something about his gaze, too intense, too lingering, set my nerves on edge. I forced a smile, the kind I'd been taught to offer adults out of politeness. "That's funny," I said, hoping to end the conversation. But he lingered undeterred, his questions piling up like unwanted gifts. What was my name? How old was I? Where did I go to school? I gave him my real name, Sarah, before I could stop myself. But when he said, "That's my favorite name for a girl," my stomach twisted. His comment about my age, so mature yet still so young, felt like a trap, his words coated in a saccharine menace. I started lying, claiming I was visiting from out of state, but he pressed harder. "I've seen you here before," he said, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Are you sure you're not local?" The air felt thick, suffocating. I turned and walked away, my heart hammering as I clutched the jeans I'd planned to buy. At the checkout, I kept my head down, but the weight of his presence lingered. I left Walmart and entered the mall, hoping the crowd would swallow me. But as I browsed Victoria's Secret, I saw him through the glass, sitting on a bench outside, his eyes scanning the store like a predator waiting for its moment. Panic clawed at my chest. I speed-walked through the mall, glancing back to see him trailing me, his pace unhurried but relentless. My fingers fumbled for my phone, and I called my mom, my voice trembling as I explained I was being followed. "Stay in a crowded store," she urged. I ducked into a busy boutique, my eyes darting to the entrance. He appeared moments later, his voice slithering through the air as he whispered my name, Sarah, like a secret he wasn't supposed to know. I approached the cashier, a young woman barely out of her teens, and blurted, "That man's following me." "I don't know him." Her eyes widened and a nearby couple overheard, their faces hardening with concern. The man hesitated at the entrance, then turned and melted into the mall's crowd as the couple promised to stay with me until my mom arrived. When she did, I collapsed into her arms, the weight of the encounter crashing over me. I didn't return to that Walmart or the mall alone after that. The memory of his voice, his insistence, haunted me, a reminder that even the most ordinary places could harbor danger. I never learned who he was, but I hoped the universe had delivered him the justice he deserved. Story 3. The Ghost of a Past Relationship. Working at Walmart was like signing up for a crash course in human chaos. At 24, I was juggling 2 jobs to afford my new apartment, and Walmart was the second, a soul-crushing grind of ringing up groceries, tidying fitting rooms, and dodging the eccentricities of customers. The store was a pressure cooker, co-workers I couldn't stand, managers who treated us like cogs, and customers who tested every ounce of my patience. That day I was a general sales associate, weaving through aisles to assist shoppers and straighten shelves, my mind numb from the monotony. Then came the tap on my shoulder, a casual gesture that shattered my routine. I turned to see Casey, my ex-girlfriend, her face lit with a smile that felt like a warning. "Hey," she said, pulling me into a hug before I could react. My stomach dropped. Casey and I had ended things months ago, a breakup marred by her obsessive behavior, endless calls, tearful voicemails, and a refusal to let go. I'd blocked her on every platform, hoping distance would sever the tie. Yet here she was, in my workplace, hundreds of miles from where she lived. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice tight. She laughed, claiming a mutual friend had mentioned I worked here. The lie was flimsy. I hadn't told anyone about this job, and our shared friends had long since cut contact with her. Her presence wasn't a coincidence. It was a calculated invasion. At first, I played along, keeping things cordial, but her questions grew invasive, her tone shifting from friendly to accusatory. "It's messed up that you blocked me," she said, her eyes narrowing. "We could have worked things out," I snapped. "Showing up at my job isn't normal, Casey. Why are you really here?" Her facade crumbled, and she launched into a tirade about how I'd abandoned her, her voice rising until customers nearby started glancing over. I told her I was seeing someone else, that she needed to leave, but she refused, trailing me as I retreated to the employee-only area. My heart pounded as I considered my options. A restraining order, a call to security. But for now, I just needed her gone. That night, after a grueling shift, I drove home, my mind replaying the encounter. My roommate Paul's car was in the driveway, a small comfort as I microwaved a frozen dinner and sank into the couch for an hour of video games, my only escape. Exhausted, I crawled into bed, locking my bedroom door out of habit. But sleep was fleeting. A faint noise jolted me awake, and I realized my door was ajar, the darkness beyond it heavy with possibility. I crept into the living room, my pulse racing. The front door was unlocked, the spare key we kept under a pot outside missing. My blood ran cold. Casey knew about that key. She'd teased me about it during our relationship, calling it a cute quirk. I checked Paul's room. His door was locked, his snores audible. Then I noticed the knife block in the kitchen. The largest blade was gone. Fear propelled me to my bedroom, where I grabbed my phone and slammed the door shut, screaming for Paul. He stumbled out, bleary-eyed as bangs erupted from inside my room, followed by Casey's voice, shrill and desperate. "I'm sorry, let's talk," she cried, yanking at the door. I held it shut, my body trembling, until Paul called the police. When they arrived, Casey dropped the knife, her face streaked with tears as they cuffed her. She was charged with burglary, her obsession landing her a lengthy prison sentence. I moved out soon after, the apartment tainted by her violation. Looking back, I cursed myself for missing the red flags, the control, the paranoia, the refusal to let go. But I also felt a strange relief, knowing she was behind bars, unable to haunt me again. At least I hoped.